Hello and welcome my friends to The Flying Kick. I am Savino as always, and today I bring you the last review of the year. Developed by the Argentinian Studio Bacord and published by Red Deer Games, Maki, Paws of Fury is a cutesy beat 'em up aimed at children coming out today for Nintendo Switch and Steam. The game will cost you $11 and we will check if this is a good pick to play with your kids or little siblings right now. Maki Paws of Fury doesn't try to reinvent the wheel regarding the story. Here you have your traditional beat-em-up tale where someone is kidnapped and an unsuspected group of friends joins to form a rescue party. Here you will be out to save your friend Kami, who Mapu, another friend of yours, kidnapped. This kidnapping left everybody scratching their heads since nobody really knew the reason behind such a vile act. Aside from the intro and some small set pieces in the level, there is not much else about the world or the characters here. Between levels you get just the world map showing which level you will play next, and that's it. It reminds me a lot of games from the arcade era, and I like that. Graphically, Maki Paws of Fury is a delight. The game is gorgeous, with some outstanding pixel art and some good animation. The backgrounds are a show by itself. The first level shows a huge forest with some snowy mountains in the background and some overly grown mushrooms. You can spot some rays shining through the woods, and there are even some nice light effects here to improve the look of things at night. The other levels are pretty good too, like the desert with the storms in the distance, or the high mountains with their snowy peaks and ice cream factories. Maki also makes use of some scaling effects from time to time, and this is something I love to see in games like this. I don't know about you, but to me this brings a ton of memories from the 16-32-bit era. Oh yeah, and take a look at this parallax scrolling, this is some top-notch work if you ask me. Animation-wise, Mech is also pretty good, all your characters move with fluidity, your enemies are particularly expressive, and I love how these bears go away crawling when you beat them. Actually, this is to show that this game is pretty family-friendly because you don't kill any of your enemies. They all withdraw after being beaten, crawling or burying themselves. No gruesome deaths to traumatize your kids here. Overall, I think the game looks incredible. It reminds me a bit of that gummy bear cartoons from the 80s, but way more colorful and vibrant. When it comes to the sound, well, it's serviceable. The music here is pretty basic, but pretty fitting to the overall theme. It sounds like a cartoon music with some simpler melodies, but good enough for the game. On the good side, there was enough care to make the music fit the level you are currently in, like how the tune in the second level has hints of surf rock, or the desert level has some eastern influences. I mean, there's nothing here that will stick with you after you beat the game, but the tunes aren't bad. The same can be said about the sound effects. They are basic but good enough for the game. Your strikes have a more arcade feel to it, and it works well here. There are some basic voices too, mainly when you use your special, but unfortunately they don't sound very good. Not that the voices are bad, they are mostly cartoon screams, but they feel detached from the game as if it wasn't mixed at all. It's hard to explain, but the voices sound like they are in front of everything else and not properly mixed with the other sounds. This is surely a minor complaint and will not affect the game, but it felt weird the first time I listened to it. The gameplay in Mech is pretty straightforward. You have 5 worlds to visit, and in each one you have 3 areas: a traditional beat-em-up level, a type of minigame in the middle, and a boss fight. The minigames are super basic. The screen will move by itself and you have to avoid obstacles, sometimes riding an armadillo, sometimes tree falling from the sky. It's a nice change of pace that I'm sure will be fun for the kids. Maki Paws of Fury is a simpler game when you talk about the combat. The game offers 3 characters that fill the traditional beat-em-up roles: Maki the Fox, who is your all-around guy, good and never sing but doesn't excel in anything; Maka the... I don't know which creature she is supposed to be, but she is the traditional female from all beat-em-ups ever, meaning fast and weak; and Tinshu the capybara, who is the tank of the game. All of them have a weak attack, a strong attack, a jump, and an area attack that can hit enemies on both sides. You also have a special that can be unleashed when this blue bar is filled. The combat here is pretty basic. You have your basic combo that you can unleash with your weak attack, and that's it. You can mix your strong attack with your weak ones, but this will not create new combos, just interrupt your basic one. It was a wasted opportunity because what's the point of having 2 types of attack and not being able to mix them to create new moves? But that's only one of the problems this game has. I know this is a game aimed for kids, but even so, there are things that would need to be addressed here before I can recommend this to anyone. The first thing I want to point out is the lack of excitement. I mean, the game is gorgeous and the music is fun, but when you start punching enemies, things starts to get really boring. And yes, all the basic mistakes are here. You can easily stun lock your enemies, but even if you decide to finish your basic combo, you can hit them when they are on the floor, so they will immediately get up while being hit. I mean, OTGs are cool, but that's just a hitbox that doesn't turn off when the enemy is on the ground. The enemy AI is basically non-existent. Enemies will wander around, going away from you to look for something in the corner of the screen, or they will just stop in their tracks and do nothing until you hit them. Yes, I know this is a game for kids, but even so, I believe kids these days are up to more challenges than enemies that never attack you. Also, there are the waves. Let me explain. In every beat'em up, you will get a couple of waves in each arena, but here the waves seem interminable. You will get 4, sometimes 5 waves of the same group of enemies, which you will have to defeat with the same basic combos or stun locks. It got to a point where I started to use my special in every chance just to defeat the enemies fast and move ahead. It feels like the developers wanted to extend the length of the game, but they forgot to add the thrill while at it. And talking about things that aren't thrilling, there are the boss battles. I'm not sure what was the idea here, but unless you know exactly which move the boss needs to be defeated, chances are that your kid will get pretty frustrated. Most bosses in this game will hit and knock you down as soon as you get close to them. Check this out. Every time I try to hit the boss, he hits me first, and even when I manage to land a strike, he doesn't take the hit, so I have to resort to one single move to defeat him. Thanks to this, the combat can drag for way more than it should, and you get bored of making the same moves over and over again. Look, I don't want to bash this game too much. I truly believe there were good intentions when creating this game, and more importantly, you can see the developers put their hearts on it, but unfortunately, that's not enough to make an engaging beat'em up. There are some basic stuff that you need to put in the game to make it interesting for the general public, and I don't think being a kid's game could be used as an argument to ignore some basic design principles. You can have a simple combat so kids can get the hang of it without making it boring for them. The original beat'em ups didn't have complex combat or even a very diverse cast of enemies, but even so they were extremely fun to the point where many are played even today. I truly believe developers should study more these games. Not play, study. They need to better understand what made them good. They weren't just button mashers as most people like to see them. Here, not only the combat is tedious, but the enemy AI is also pretty bad, making the enemies pretty easy to defeat, while the bosses can be pretty tough to beat, especially for a kid. Again, studying the classics is a step in the right direction. Look how Final Fight mixes its enemies in a way where you are never safe in one single position, or how the enemies in Streets of Rage use the large space they have to walk back and forth, driving your attention to their direction while others coming rushing at your back. Also, the lack of enemy variation makes every encounter feel the same. I have no problem beating enemies from the first level in all subsequent levels, but here the repetition starts to show right at the beginning of the game. I mean, there's not even a palette swap here and there to make things more interesting. If the enemies were more interesting to fight against, or if the combat were more engaging, maybe it should be possible to overlook the army of clones, but unfortunately, that's not the case here. For $11, I'm sorry, but that's a no-go. While I think the game is gorgeous and made with a lot of care, the developers didn't study the genre closely enough before making the game, so a lot of basic mistakes are in place, preventing the game from being as good as it could have been. If you're looking for a beat'em up that you can play with your kids, there are a few that I can recommend in the comments, so let me know if you need some tips. And that's it for the review, folks. As I said, this is the last beaten up to be released this year, so no more reviews around here for a while. I'm working on a couple of videos, one reviewing the year and another talking about what's coming in 2025, so keep your eye on the channel. And in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful 2025, and as always, keep it up.